Good day, everyone. Welcome. My name is Loretta Atamosa, your instructor for GED 6 with the description, The Contemporary World. For today's video discussion, we are going to talk about the lesson 8 of our course, which is all about the global city. And so, we will discover some realities about the different cities in the world, the global cities. First, we will discuss the different indicators of global city, then we will try to understand the benefits and challenges that a global city has, and lastly, we will identify which cities in the Philippines can be considered a global city, if there are any. Our intended learning outcome for this video discussion are the following. First is to explain why globalization is a spatial phenomenon. Second is to identify the attributes of a global city, and lastly, to analyze how cities serves as engines of globalization. Ready? Let's start! So if you had the chance, would you move to New York, Tokyo, or how about Sydney? Chances are many of you would like to move to these major cities, and if not, you would probably like to visit them anyway. Some of you might have already traveled to these cities as tourists or temporary residents, or maybe you have heard stories about them. And you may have relatives living there who have described buzzing metropolis while forest of skyscrapers and train lines that zigzag on top of each other. So not all people have been to global cities, but most known about them. Their influence extends even to one's imagination. So what are those places? Why are they important? And how are they relevant to you? And lastly, why study global cities? So why study global cities? So far, much of the analysis of globalization in the previous lessons had looked at how ideas of internationalism shaped modern world politics. We also examined cultural movements like K-pop and how they spread through media like the internet. What this lesson will emphasize, however, is that globalization is spatial. This statement means two things. First, globalization is spatial because it occurs in physical spaces. You can see it when foreign investment and capital move through a city and when companies build skyscrapers. People who are working in this business or Filipinos working abroad start to purchase or rent high-rise condominium units and better homes. As all these events happen, more poor people are driven out of city centers to make way for the new developments. Second, globalization is spatial because what makes it move is that the fact that it is based in places, Los Angeles and the home of Hollywood is where movies are made for global consumption. The main headquarters of Sony is in Tokyo, and from there, the company coordinates the sale of its various electronics goods to branches across the world. In other words, cities act on globalization and globalization acts on cities. So they are the sites as well as the mediums of globalization. Just as the internet enables and shapes global forces, so too do cities. Here is a video discussion prepared to us by Heidi Lovely. Here, let's watch this.
Hello my dear students, welcome back, and we will have a lovely time this week as we tour the different cities all over the world as we discuss this week's lesson on the global city. Alright, so why is this an important topic in our Contemporary World course? First, let me work up your imagination for a while and ask you, if money is not a problem at all, which city would you go to right now? Which city would you be in right now? Would you go to New York City and see the Statue of Liberty? Or would you go to Paris and take a lot of selfies with the Eiffel Tower as your background? Or would you want to go see Prince Harry or Prince William in London? Or would you be out and about in the busy streets of Tokyo, Japan and do some shopping? All of those I mentioned are all global cities. The world is seeing huge developments in mass urbanization in unprecedented and an historic scale and speed. Alright, so what then is a global city? Sociologist Saskia Sassen identified 4 ways. First, A global city is a key location for finance and specialized service firms which have replaced manufacturing as the leading economic services. She also said that global city is a site for production, including production of innovations in leading industries. Global cities are also highly centralized command points in the organization of the world economy. And lastly, global cities are markets for the products and innovations produced. She, by the way, was the one who coined the term global city, and she wrote this book, The Global City, New York, London, and Tokyo. Globalization is spatial. Globalization is spatial because it occurs in physical spaces, and because what makes it move is the fact that it is based in places. That's why huge businesses, for example, always consider space when they open up a business. Whenever you open a business venture, it's always about location, location, location. The space and location where you put your business can make or break your business. So therefore, globalization is spatial. What then are the indicators of globality? Global cities are centers for economic power. They are also centers for economic opportunities and economic competitiveness. They are also centers for authority. They are also centers for political influence, and they are also centers for higher learning and culture. The foremost characteristic of a global city is its economic power. Sasson remains correct in saying that economic power largely determines which cities are global. New York City may have the largest stock market in the world, but Tokyo houses the most number of headquarters. Shanghai in China may have a smaller stock market compared to New York and Tokyo, but it plays a critical role in the global economic supply chain ever since China became the manufacturing center in the world. Global cities are also centers for economic opportunities, making it more attractive to talents across the world. Global cities drive economies. They are economic powerhouses which has the stock markets, businesses, the head offices, and the likes. And for example, we have Silicon Valley. It is home to many startup and global technology companies. Apple, Facebook, and Google are among the most prominent. Global cities are centers for economic competitiveness. To measure economic competitiveness, the Economic Intelligence Unit, or EIU, has added other criteria like market size, purchasing power of citizens, size of the middle class, and potential for growth. Global cities are also center of authority. Global cities, Washington, D.C., for example, may not be as wealthy as New York City, but it is the seat of American state power. It also houses major landmarks such as the White House, of course, the Supreme Court, the Capitol Building, the Lincoln Memorial, and the Washington Monument. Next, global cities are also centers for political influence. The cities that house major international organizations may also be considered centers of political influence. The headquarters of the UN, for example, is in New York City, while that of the European Union, the EU, is in Brussels in Belgium. The ASEAN, on the other hand, is located in Jakarta, Indonesia. Next, global cities are centers of high learning and culture. They are cultural capitals of the world. They have the museums, the sports centers, the theater, the nightlife, name it, and they all have it. So global cities offer a lot of opportunities. These opportunities include rapid economic development as cities becomes hubs of commerce. It thus makes sense why majority of the world's population are now flocking in the cities to seek for economic opportunities. But global cities also have their undersides. Challenges include global cities being sites of great inequality and poverty. Here in Metro Manila, for example, it is common to see skyscrapers alongside massive squatters area. Another challenge that global cities pose is that of environmental degradation. Most often, cities are environmentally unsustainable. Cities process large amounts of energy and materials as they excrete different sorts of waste product. Another challenge is that major cities can be sites of great terror attacks. We have the 9/11 attack, for example, that brought down the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City in 2011, and that of the November 2015 coordinated attacks in Paris by the zealots of the ISIL, or the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant. Cities, especially those with global influence, are obvious targets for terrorists due to their high population and their role as symbols of globalization, which many terrorists despise. So, the world's population have increasingly been centralized in the urban settlements. In the next few decades, the world will build more infrastructure like ports, buildings, airports, railways, bridges, telecommunication sites, and more than ever before in history. This creates new opportunities and challenges. It was also predicted that in 2050, more than 65% of the world population will live in urban areas. So if you want to live in a huge city, in a global city, which city would you like to settle in? So here is a list of the most livable and sustainable cities in the world. This is according to the EIU data. They rank cities around the world and they come up with this top 10 most livable city in the world, and they examine quality of healthcare, education, infrastructure, stability, and culture when assessing living conditions in each city. So, are you ready to know which cities make it to the top 10? This is again in 2019. Top 10 is Adelaide, Australia. Adelaide is the capital city of the state of South Australia and the 5th most populous city of Australia. Adelaide is a gateway to some of Australia's best wine and is home to Australia's official best restaurant, hotel, wine, gin, and beach. On the 9th place is Copenhagen, Denmark. See how picturesque and Instagrammable this place is. With its short working week, safe streets, good public transport, top work-life balance, and excellent bicycle infrastructure, it doesn't matter so much that the weather is cold and the taxes are sky high. So this is Copenhagen, Denmark on the 9th place. Tied on the 7th place are Toronto, Canada and Tokyo, Japan. Toronto, Canada is the economic capital of Canada. It is well balanced, a very safe city where you can be out and about At all times of the day and night, it has diverse culture, good government, and an economy that is described by some as the center of the universe. Again, on number 7 is Tokyo, Japan. Tokyo's busy capital mixes the ultra-modern and the traditional, from neon-lit skyscrapers to historic temples. Ohayo gozaimasu from Tokyo, Japan. On the 6th place is Vancouver, Canada. Among the components of livability as seen in the city of Vancouver are protection of the environment, maintenance of diverse economy, delivery of services from residents and businesses, and the like. On the 5th place is still a city from Canada. We have Calgary, Canada. Calgary has a lot to offer anyone wanting to live in a clean, safe, and affordable city with access to great parks, recreation, and entertainment activities. On the 4th place is a city in Japan. This is the Western Japan city of Osaka. It boosted its ranking from the other year when it did not even make it to the top 10. And the report attributed the rise to its improvement in quality and availability of public transportation, as well as consistent decline in crime rates. On the 3rd place is Sydney, Australia. Sydney is Australia's biggest and best city according to some websites, and it offers the best balance of environment and cultural delights. It has a wonderful climate as well, with some beaches and pools and bushland. It has become a heart for the outdoor type. That's Sydney, Australia. And on the 2nd place is still from Australia. Melbourne, Australia took the 2nd spot, following close behind Vienna's score. Vienna had taken the top spot from Melbourne last year after 7 consecutive years at number 1. So that's Melbourne, Australia. A close second to the top 1, the most livable city in the world for 2 consecutive years now, is Vienna, Austria. Vienna, Austria has been ranked as the most livable city in the world according to the Economist Intelligence Unit. The Austrian capital has almost perfect scores for stability, cultural environment, education, and infrastructure, and healthcare. And ta-da! This is the Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna. This was way back in 2011. This Schönbrunn Palace is one of the most attractive tourist spots in Vienna. Beautiful, isn't it? So right there is the entire facade of the Schönbrunn Palace. Beautiful. So basing on the world's most livable cities, again, this data is in 2019. The summarized 3 cities are found in Canada. We have Vancouver, Calgary, and Toronto. 2 cities are found in Japan. We have Osaka and Tokyo, while another 3 cities that made it to the top 10 are from Australia. We have Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide, Australia. And of course, we have the 2 European cities of Copenhagen and Vienna, Austria. It's interesting to note that not a single U.S. city made it to the top 10. Honolulu, Hawaii scored the highest among the U.S. cities, ranking 22nd. New York only ranked 58. The cities ranked lag due to lower scores in infrastructure and stability, and with a higher perceived risk of crime and terrorism. You may also wonder how our capital fared in this ranking. Manila is at 103rd in the ranking. I also included a picture of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. This is one of my dream destinations. So one day we shall go there and take a lot of selfies with the Eiffel Tower. And Paris is on the 25th rank in the most livable cities in the world. So there you go, my dear students. We have just toured the different cities around the world. And in parting, let me say the world is such a beautiful place. Don't limit your sights to what you just see around you. Dream big and explore, for there are so many beautiful places around the world. Set your sights on it and work hard for it. For one day, all your dreams are going to come true. They're going to be a reality. So you just have to dream for it. All right? So that's our discussion on this week's lesson on the global city.
Alrighty, that is a great presentation made by Heidi Lovely, right? Where we are introduced about the definition of global city and the characteristics of global cities. And so in the years to come, more and more people will experience globalization through cities. In 1950, only 30% of the world lived in urban areas. By 2014, the number increased to 54%. And by 2050, it is expected to reach 66%. This lesson studies globalization through the living environment of rapidly increasing number of people. With that, we can ask ourselves, what are the challenges of global cities? So global cities conjure up images of fast-paced, exciting, cosmopolitan lifestyle. But such description are lacking. Global cities also have their undersides. They can be sites of great inequality and poverty, as well as tremendous violence. Like the broader processes of globalization, global cities create winners and losers. So cities can be sustainable because of their density. As Richard Florida notes, ecologists have found that by concentrating their populations in smaller areas, cities and metros decrease human encroachment on natural habitats. Denser settlement patterns yield energy savings. Apartment buildings, for example, are more efficient to heat and cool than detached suburban houses. Moreover, in cities with extensive public transportation systems, people tend to drive less and thereby cut carbon emissions. It is no surprise to learn that, largely because of the city's extensive train system, New Yorkers have the lowest per capita carbon footprint in the United States. In Asia, dense global cities like Singapore and Tokyo also have relatively low per capita carbon footprints. Not all cities, however, are as dense as New York or Tokyo. Some cities like Los Angeles are urban sprawls with massive freeways that forces residents to spend money on cars and gas. And while cities like Manila, Bangkok, and Mumbai are dense, their lack of public transportation and their government's inability to regulate their car industries have made them extremely polluted. Will it be possible to grow more food in cities instead? Solutions like so-called vertical farms built in abandoned buildings, as an increasing being down in New York, may lead the way towards more environmentally sustainable cities. If more food can be grown with less water in denser spaces, cities will begin to be greener. And okay, one of the most interesting things that we need to know about the idea of global city is that, how about the poor living in a global city? We have consistently noted that economic globalization has paved the way for massive inequality. This phenomenon is thus very pronounced in cities. Some large cities, particularly those in Scandinavia, have found ways to mitigate inequality through state-led social redistribution programs. Yet, Many cities, particularly those in developing countries, are sites of contradictions. In places like Mumbai, Jakarta, and Manila, it is common to find gleaming buildings alongside massive shantytowns. This duality may even be seen in rich urban cities. So in most of the world's global cities, the middle class is also thinning out. Globalization creates high-income jobs that are concentrated in global cities. These high earners in turn generate demand for an unskilled labor force, like hotel cleaners, nannies, maids, waitresses, and etc. that will attend to their increasing needs. Meanwhile, many middle-income jobs in manufacturing and business processing outsources like call centers, for example, are moving to other countries. This hollowing out of the middle class in global cities has heightened the inequality within them. In places like New York, there are high-rolling American investment bankers whose children are raised by Filipina maids. A large global city may thus be a paradise for some, but a purgatory for others. And to wrap up our discussions, global cities are sites and mediums of globalization. They are therefore material representations of the phenomenon. Through them, we see the best globalization. There are places that create exciting fusions of culture and ideas. They are also places that generate tremendous wealth. However, they remain sites of great inequality, where global servants serve global entrepreneurs. So the question of how globalization can be made more just is partly a question of how people make their cities more just. Again, my name is Loretta Tomosa. Thank you for watching and see you guys in my next video. Goodbye!